Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Planning Board meeting of Thursday, October 26th. What time is it? Calling the meeting to order at 7:20. And a reminder to our audience that the meeting is being broadcast and recorded. We did have two public hearings on our agenda today. Both of them have asked for continuances for anyone in the audience, but we will get to those in due course.
Sorry, I let you in.
Am I good? No echo? Okay. All right, so that said, twice, we'll have the clerk's report.
We have received correspondence from two entities since the last planning board. One of them was two emails about requests for public GIS files, which the town planner has followed up with. The other one was concerning 9 to 49 Homer.
All right, thank you. Next on our agenda is public comment. If there's any members online or in the audience that would like to make a public comment, I will open it up at this time, and I'll let Peter Matchick manage that.
Thank you. So there are two people in the audience via Zoom that have their hand raised. First, Margie Greschel. Margie Greschel, can you please unmute yourself and state your name and address?
Margie Gassell, 8 Adams Road. So,
Excuse me, Margie, we can't hear you in the room. We just have to turn our audio up.
okay.
Paul, is there any way to turn the audio up? Yeah, all right, thank you.
I've got mine all the way up on this end. Can you hear me yet?
Yep, we can hear you now.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Since the combined meetings of the Sustainability Committee and the Planning Board were discontinued, the Sustainability Committee has really prioritized their efforts on moving the tree bylaw forward. And we've been working on finishing up the draft and tying up loose ends. And also because the joint meetings have stopped, it's no longer a public process. And so our idea to address that is that we want to complete the draft document in the next couple of weeks so that we can begin to hold public forums and share the information with the community and get their feedback. I understand that Tricia, you suggested a working group, and I think that perhaps a working group could be the right thing to just go over the remaining issues. And yeah, so I'm asking who on the planning board could be available in this time frame in the next couple of weeks to meet with me.
Oh, boy, no, it's really loud here. Okay. I think just to clarify, and I was going to talk about this in our normal agenda item under Sustainability Committee. Two things. So one, I'm not sure, and maybe I'm missing something, that I don't think joint meetings have been discontinued. It was just that we'll have them whenever is a good opportunity to have them. So I wouldn't say that we're certainly not opposed to meeting again with the Sustainability Committee.
Draft.
Yeah, I think it's more about having a bylaw draft to really look at, and that work, meanwhile, the work is done in the Sustainability Committee and brought to the planning board. So I just wanted to clarify that we're certainly not opposed to that.
Yeah, what I recall, I think there was one meeting where I chaired where Tricia may not have been present, where we talked about having like working sessions and a schedule of what we would do each session. So I did envision it being kind of a regular joint meeting until we made progress. I was going to ask about that, like when we were going to go back to that so we can make some progress on it, because I didn't see it on this agenda and it seemed kind of like a light agenda and a great opportunity to do it. So maybe when we talk about our meetings, because we have 3 more left for the whole year, if we can use them to work with the tree bylaw, we should.
Yeah, I think we just have to talk about how we see that process going and where the work should fall, I guess. to make sure we're in agreement on that. And the second thing was what I did attend the Sustainability Committee meeting. It wasn't this Monday, but it was the Monday previous, I believe, because the weeks go so fast. And I did suggest, we were talking about, and again, I'm sorry this is out of order, but maybe Margie then doesn't have to hang out for our whole meeting. We did talk about the opt-in stretch code, and that I had offered after town meeting to work with the Sustainability Committee on that, to kind of work through things, but I think for reasons of the Sustainability Committee, that really didn't go forward that way, and so I made the offer again. So, and I suggested, instead of having these big committees, having 10-plus people try to work through these things, that we start with smaller working groups to have things progress further, and that someone on the Sustainability Committee thought that was also a good idea for the tree bylaw. So that's kind of how that happened. So I was going to work to be on the working group for the stretch code information, and I guess then would be looking for someone to be on a working group with the Sustainability Committee, if that's what we want to do. This was just a proposal I threw out in that meeting for the tree bylaw. And we can discuss that in a regular place on the agenda too, because it's being thrown at everybody at this time, so.
And I'll just put it out there that since the last planning board meeting, that we met with Margie, and I think that after that meeting, we were going to go back, and Margie, another member of the Sustainability Committee, Chuck Litz, myself, our Sustainability Manager, Samantha Riley, and Alvaro, our Assistant Town Planner, we all met, and we kind of went over what needs to be done in the direction of the tree bylaw. And I do want to note that I believe Margie has started to put together and compile a bylaw. And I know that was in front of the Sustainability Committee. Was that on Monday, Margie?
Tuesday.
Tuesday. So there is starting to become a working draft. Is that appropriate to say? So now there is starting to become a working draft of a tree bylaw. And so I think it's starting to, I agree, it is getting to a point where we all can discuss it again and kind of going over the finer points of the tree bylaw regarding, triggers. I know that one of my items was to follow up with town council about the triggers, and actually I did that with Margie and Chuck, in person during the day. Tree size, money, payment in lieu of, replanting schedules, all those types of things. So, Margie, if it's appropriate, I'm happy to share the draft with the planning board so everyone can kind of take a look at it.
Well, the draft has moved along, and there are just some things remaining that I wanted to get some feedback on. I have to take this opportunity to say that waiting until the end of the year to reach the point that I was hoping to reach much sooner does not feel wise to me.
I have some comments, and if we are moving it earlier to the agenda, I could, or otherwise I'm fine waiting, but I definitely do have some comments. So.
I think if it's about process, Margie's here now, like I said, I hate to have her.
We can just
Wait,
take that
yeah.
item out of order.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's just get it done.
So I do, I'm fine with how it works out, but I do remember the last planning board that we actually had topics and keep coming through a working group. And we had expressed, and again, we can change our mind, but we had expressed the public, make sure it's in front of the public so we don't have people wondering where this came from. I am perfectly fine if there's an alternate pathway that gets this sort of sped up because we weren't making the progress we wanted to, but I would like to make sure that that is also with timeline, that I don't see any reason why this wouldn't be ready for May 24, but I personally think that we need that same really detailed work plan of like when they're coming back. And again, sometimes we push one meeting, we didn't feel like we were able to give it adequate time, but I want to make sure that that is a well spelled out plan to be coming back. And then I think if it is like a draft, so we've kind of flopped back and forth. And again, we realize maybe we're smarter about how we want to attack it. I think just for Margie, my advice would be, it sounds like there's still open issues, meaning somebody is taking a chance of making a decision. And I'm, again, more than fine with that, but I think a cover of, here's the draft bylaw, here are still the things that sustainability, the working group decided at a cover, makes that easier to get to the next step.
Since we're talking about progress, I think I seem to remember that at the last meeting, it feels to me, from what I'm hearing today, that it's kind of like a jump missing one step. Mm-hmm. Because what I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, is that we heard the progress that the Sustainability Committee had made so far. And then there were a lot of good commentary and good discussion relative to making sure that not only the overview of the intent of that bylaw, it was clear, which was not very much at that point, and there were parts of emphasis, of focus on that analysis that people thought, maybe I might have been Anna, one of the discussions, they said, like, yeah, but there's not a lot of full cutting left to do in Ashland, so maybe there's other emphasis, and we discussed that, and I think we left it at the end of the meeting that they will reconvene, maybe with the process that Peter was describing, kind of package it again with a little more clarity, and then we will review it so that we could put it in front of the public, which we all said we want. I don't think that we should jump into putting it in front of the public on something that has not gotten to that level of completion.
I think it needs to come to us soon, it sounds like.
Yeah, and that was what, and maybe it was that one meeting, I think at the end of September, maybe I don't remember that I wasn't at.
I think it was the second meeting in September.
Something,
The last time
yeah.
that was sustainability.
That a typical process for a bylaw coming before us from another group would be that group would take the lead in creating the bylaw, would bring the bylaw before us. Of course, we would review it, give feedback. It would go back to the group for edits. The bylaw would come back again. And so maybe that was confusing what I said versus maybe what had been said the meeting before. And so this would still be something that would periodically come before the planning board, of course, just not every step of the process, that it would go back to the sustainability committee or working group or whatever to incorporate all the ideas, get more detailed, and then the bylaw, we're looking at another draft of it, a revised draft. That I would say would be the typical process.
I mean, mine was more in the middle. I felt like this thing is so complex because we as a community seem to have a long history, multiple years of effort trying to do it and struggling because of legal and technical issues, right? What is appropriate for Ashland, what's not appropriate. So I was envisioning something more in the middle. They're not quite on their own, but we would, if I recall a discussion, we would try to make 20 to 30 minutes available to them whenever we had a light agenda as much as possible to kind of move it along and give them feedback as they're really pushing this thing as soon as possible. So I, for one, think, a light agenda like today's is perfect for this conversation, but we should make room on the rest of the 3 meetings we have left. It seems like we don't have a ton of big projects right now in front of us other than Homer Ave. So it seems like a great time to get them to these meetings that we have left and give them as much feedback as we can and hear from town council. And
I'm okay with that as long as progress has been made between the meetings, that the work isn't happening at our meeting. The work needs to happen outside the meeting and be brought to planning board. And I think the extra help with that is Peter has been very involved in the process, and now they're asking for someone to be part of that working group, someone who knows a little bit more about, is used to reading the bylaws. It's like, oh, we can get town council involved with this, so a planning board member to be that connection. So I think that's what they're asking for, so that work can progress maybe a little bit faster than it has been being in the sustainability committee alone. So, but like I said, I don't think it should I don't think the work should be done in the planning board meeting. I don't feel that's appropriate. So, but is there
I mean, it
someone?
depends
is
on
there-
what the
wait,
work
wait.
is,
Is
right?
there someone that can be the member that participates in the working group for the tree, just for the tree bylaw?
I mean, I'm more than happy to make myself available if there's no one else. I can certainly do that. I think that the challenge I'm seeing is Peter has some expertise as a planner. Town council has some input. Sustainability has expertise and priority for them is the tree bylaw. I, for one, think it is appropriate to bring progress to us for feedback. And if there's kind of a working session with us where we're pointing them in the right direction, I, for one, think that's okay. If we have to have a working group where one of us has to be involved, I am more than happy to do that. But I do think it's time to bring the latest draft to us. I think it's time to see it. It sounds like some work has happened.
Yeah, I think that's what we're all saying. So are you willing to go onto that working group with the tree
Sure.
bylaw? Okay, so Margie, Anna's going to fill that role, the tree bylaw working group. And then hopefully, I mean, we do typically these days have room on our agenda, especially for, I mean, at this point. But also we want to make sure on the agenda there is a leap, there's something to talk about. There's a leap to talk about,
Yeah.
not general questions, but something more specific. Marcel?
Yeah,
It
I like
sounds like it would be
where
helpful
Anna is going
if
with,
I provide you
with
with
this.
a copy, an updated copy.
I'm sorry, that, I don't think we caught all of that, Margie.
Sorry, I'm, from what I heard, it sounds like it would be helpful if I were to provide you with an updated copy before the next meeting where we're on the agenda. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would say before that time that Anna would be given that copy, work through it with you and Peter at least
Okay.
one time, so that it's been worked through once, and then it's brought before the planning board.
Okay.
I thought that had already happened with Peter meeting with them and you. That didn't happen?
I've met with Margie and Chuck multiple times.
Okay.
And I've met, I think, with Margie and Chuck at least once or twice since.
Okay, because I mean, if you guys already met and kind of made progress, I don't want to redo what you already
I'm
did.
already meeting,
Yeah.
I would say, at this point, correct me if I'm wrong, Margie, bi-weekly with Margie and Chuck in helping guide the development of this tree bylaw. Now, there are some decisions that need to be made between the Sustainability Committee and the tree, and the planning board. I think from the last planning board meeting that we discussed this, it was, hey, yes, there's a pretty large outstanding items, but why don't you go back to sustainability and, I'm sorry, and vet these larger questions, right? What are the triggers? What,
Right.
is the building envelope gonna count? Are we going to, I think we definitely stayed away from existing residential, but does any new residential count, within a new subdivision? Yes, we are gonna count the road layout within the subdivision, any newly created lots, right? Via A&R and/or via a subdivision, are those going to be, analyzed and applied to this bylaw, And I think we kind of talked about in theory that in other communities outside of Ashland, right, tree bylaws have been adopted. In my opinion, in a defense for the tear down, right? The pre-war and/or the post-war multifamily, the post-war ranch house, right? That was built in the 1950s and 60s that were being torn down a little bit east of us, right? And there was mature trees on the site. And then if they were being torn down and replaced with a much larger house, what was the replacement? Because a lot of the trees that had matured since the development of that house were being cut down, right? And so I think Ashland, I think the proposal in front of us was to look at commercial sites that was multifamily sites, commercial sites. But I think one of the biggest outstanding questions was, how do you address residential? And do you address residential with any newly created lots from this point out?
Right, and I
So
thought.
where's the process? We're only talking process right
So-
now.
Yeah, so I
and I
have
want to let
met,
Marcelo in.
I have met weekly, bi-weekly, and I'm
So-
happy to meet weekly with Margie and Chuck.
So-
But there's some
Wait
pretty
on.
big stuff, but I do believe, and I always planned on to have a very strong process with the planning board and the sustainability committee, because there's some pretty big discussion points. Number one, with the size of a tree and what is in and what is out.
Marcelo?
I think some of what you said, Peter, it's really what kind of speaks to me. I think, yeah, creating working groups and everything, that sounds great. Looks like a working group is already ongoing. So I'm not sure that complicating it more, it really is what we are looking for, at least from my viewpoint. I think what we're looking for is those big ticket items, the big idea of each part, to be communicated clearly so that we can say, okay, we agree, or these one we don't. But once the big idea is agreed upon, I think the minutia, there's plenty of expertise there to get a bylaw that is legal and that would achieve those objectives. I think that's the right process. I think making a process out of a process is never really very useful, in my view. I think simplifying the process is better. What I caught from our last discussion is that there was just no clarity on the big picture, at least that I heard. Once I hear that those ideas are clear, and what are we trying to do, and we're doing it like this, and these are the 4 or 5 tools, whatever is the structure of this thing, then I will be very happy, because this objective is very important to me too. I would like to get something good for the town, achieve it. But the process can be very simple in my view.
Marcelo, I totally agree with you. I think that makes, like, you took the words right out of my mouth. I think if there's already really in-depth working sort of sessions happening with Peter, I feel like the next step would be to see where it stands right now and address the big ticket items in a group setting at the next meeting, and then go from there and not overcomplicate it.
So the working group, you say it's already in place, it's already moving, so maybe a member of the planning board is not needed at this time for the tree bylaw. Is that what we're saying?
I think that's what I'm hearing. What I'm hearing is that there's been significant input from Peter. So at this point, the Sustainability Committee needs to pick a draft of some kind, bring it back to us. It sounds like, Peter, you know what are the difficult 5 to 10 items that you could identify for us. It seems to me whatever draft Sustainability presents and whatever list that Peter can offer us, hey guys, these are the 5 to 10 issues that you guys need to make a decision on, we should be able to point sustainability in the right direction. I recall at the last meeting that we understood how complicated this was, and we were comfortable coming up with something to start the discussion with the public and to move some sort of draft forward, and then allow the public to guide us as well. So I don't think we need to solve all these really complicated issues. I think we need to kind of give guidance to sustainability as to what is it that we believe the public is ready for. And it might be just one sliver of this very complex, big thing.
So it sounds like basically we're going to put this on the agenda for the next meeting. Peter, I think, may not be there.
Yeah, I will most likely, I will not be there.
So,
Yeah.
Do you think you could highlight for us, high level, like these are the 5 things that are big struggles that you, the planning board, need to point sustainability
Yeah, no, I'm happy to do
towards?
that. I think, I'm happy to meet with Margie and Chuck again. I'm happy to create a memo with our sustainability manager to highlight these
Yeah.
points, and I
And
think.
that way we
I think
can-
I could sum it up in a very short two-page memo to say, these are the bullet points.
Right,
'Cause it-
decide this and this.
Because I think when
Yeah.
you sit down and I've read bylaws across the state regarding trees, some are very simple, 3 pages, it's it, and then some are a little bit more, more complicated. I think the less complicated, the better in any bylaw. And so I'm happy to continue to work. I think Margie, Chuck, and myself and Samantha have had a good working relationship with Alvaro. I've been able to get the town council to answer some of the bigger questions regarding the quote-unquote the triggers and how is this going to be kind of implemented. And I'm happy to do that And if that's the direction that we want to go in, I'm happy to take the lead.
So kind of a
from my
follow-up with
standpoint.
that is I remember there was, we sort of, or the sustainability discovered this loophole about subdivisions, right? And Peter was going to find out how that was certainly applied in the past, and we said maybe it only applies to the road. And then if you apply this tree bylaw, what people are saying, the big areas, maybe someone can go clear cut it and sell out a lot. Like that's a translation of the whole thing. And I haven't heard any feedback
well,
of that.
So that's the
Well,
council
it's-
question.
Yes, and also this is not an agenda item, so we're not going to.
Yeah, we can't go
We're-
too deep.
right.
That's a good
No,
point.
we're staying
Yeah,
on.
that's actually a good point. We don't
Okay,
have
so
the tree
follow up.
bylaw
So
on our
Peter's
agenda.
So Peter's on that. We will put this on the November 9th
Yep.
agenda. Peter and the Sustainability Committee and whoever's
Yeah.
involved with that will take it as far as they can, bring a bylaw, send a bylaw so we can review the bylaw ahead of the November 9th meeting, including your memo.
Yes.
And then we will discuss it with the Sustainability Committee on November 9th, and we'll go from there.
think
Can I
that's
just
it.
make a request for the memo, if it's possible? Like, for example, trigger, right? There could be options from you and town council. Like, these are the three options where we can kind of choose one, right?
Yeah,
Or
I think-
size of tree, like, these are your options,
So I think-
choose one.
Regarding the triggers, quote
Yeah.
unquote, I think that's been settled, 100%. I think I've worked with Margie and Chuck, and I think we're beyond that. I think the biggest part is now, okay.
But what I mean is, in your memo.
In my memo,
if
yeah,
you-
I can highlight
If you
that,
give us like 2 or
100%.
3 options, I think it'll make our work easier, because it's almost like a checklist. Like, what are we all agreeing on? And it's not that we're gonna reach consensus necessarily, but what do we think the public is ready to consider, right?
Well, it sounds like you would present the few things that you were considering and which one you decided on to put in the bylaw. And then it can,
Yes.
yeah, and then it can always be re-questioned.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, like, the work being done there and brought into us here, and we can always question it. Like, why did you choose 6 inches versus 8 inches, or whatever? We can have that question. But there should be a preferred answer in the bylaw already for us to
I'm okay
consider.
with that. I
right.
don't have any problem with sustainability taking that recommendation to us, but I do want to give them some input.
Of course,
So-
that's what,
Mm-hmm.
that's.
And Peter might
that's
have
why-
options.
That's
that
why they
m-
would be coming
yeah.
before us. So, okay. So that's the plan, Marjorie. Is that clear for you? Okay,
Yeah, I
so
think I
November
got it.
9th, and then we'll be looking at the bylaw at that time with a joint meeting, however many members of the Sustainability Committee would like to join us.
Yeah, and Margie, I would just add, can you please reach out to myself and Samantha, and we can schedule a meeting next week to move forward.
Good? Margie? Does
Yeah.
that sound good? Any,
I just faded out. I didn't know what happened. Okay, I'm
Okay.
good. Thank you.
okay.
Okay.
All right,
this-
so we're still in public comment.
Yes, I'm sorry. So thank you for your patience, but Mr. Mark DeSoni, can you please unmute yourself and state your name and address?
Hey, Mark Sony, 29 Hawthorne Road, Ashland, Mass. I want to talk about 2 things that involves the whole planning board. One of them is the opt-in stress code, which was mentioned earlier a little bit, but not talked about. And the other one is going to be how can you overall make up to date a new strategy for site designs for developers. Well, nowadays, and envision Ashland is going to be going forward with the comprehensive plan. Going to need new site design rules to go with that. So first, it's going to be these stretch up in the stretch code is going to be. I wonder and thinking out loud is that's got if you were thinking that, and nothing against Margie and the tree thing. The tree code is going to be complex. This is a little more down to earth with the planning board's way of doing things. Opt-in stretch code and the site review up to date, and to get involved in both of those, we'd have to understand that bring in the building inspector so he can be up to date and be heard on publicly. I'd like to be involved in any of those at all possible. that's it, that's it so far, but I might have some after.
So it sounds
All
like,
right,
sounds
no.
like Mark wants to be involved in the stretch code conversations. And-
Those will be coming for the planning board as well, obviously. So right now, we'll probably just keep that to the working group, and then it'll be brought, obviously into the public. So thank you, Mark, for those comments.
And I said, I'm not done yet.
Okay.
The stretch code to me, is what came from the form-based codes that got passed at town meeting some years ago and got signed by the Attorney General and got put forth. The tree bylaw, you gave Marjorie a lot of time on that. This has more to do with the development when they come in, when they break ground. And before the trees get pulled out, whatever. But this is the I'm looking down like the comprehensive plan with the Vision Ashland. That it's got to be forwarded in the open to work all together. Can the planning board with the building inspector work together and bring it out front into the public, and I can be involved with the building inspector? I would like to be involved in that too.
Mark, all I can do is say thank you for your comments. I mean, I think I'm not sure, maybe I didn't understand the question, but again, the stretch opt-in code is something that I told the Sustainability Committee I would be part of a working group on. And then, similar to the tree bylaw, we will bring that before the planning board, of course, which everyone is free to participate in. And that's going to be the process for that.
But for the envision action down the road to try to attract businesses, all that's going to be all together and in public, and through the board themselves and the building inspector. It's got to be in town hall on paper, then with developers coming in and businesses coming in to see our economical woman there that's there, and I forgot her name, which I'm sorry for, and to work all together as a town expanded. So without any of that being in the public and people not knowing what's the background of it, I would like to be on those backgrounds to help bring it to the public.
Well, we'll take that into consideration. Thank you, Mark.
And to Peter, that's the same thing as the zoning codes.
Thank you, Mark. And yes, all the public, and especially you that were so crucial in form-based codes, will be part of this. And the opt-in and I know the Sustainability Committee is working hard on it, and I think that's where the place where it is right now. And the building commissioner has met with the sustainability representative just to discuss it. And I think opt-in. I think a lot of some towns have adopted it, but it's a fairly complicated set of building codes that we all have to kind of make sure. And I think at the last time we discussed, we all want to make sure that we wanted to see how it was going to affect the average homeowner in Ashland before there was any decisions made.
And with a light agenda, this is it. This is going to be it.
Okay, last comment, Mark.
And with light agenda, the next 2 or 3 meetings to the end of the year, this would be a good time to try as a board with the building committee, building inspector, to make a draft out of that. That's it.
We have no more public comment.
All right, thank you. So we're moving on to item 4 on our agenda, which is public hearings. The first one of those, as I mentioned before, both of those public hearings have asked for continuances. The first one is 400 Cedar Street. That is the T-Mobile special permit.
Yeah, so everybody under tab 2 in your binder will find a continuance. So at the last meeting, I think we all talked with the applicant for T-Mobile, Adam Braley, who was representing the application. And we all talked about making sure that structural analysis was complete. I can tell everybody today, that on Wednesday, I received the check for the peer review for the structural analysis to begin. And so I have emailed our structural analysis engineer from Haley and Ward to start that process. And hopefully by the next meeting, we will have that report in hand. And so things are moving on that application from a technical standpoint with Haley and Ward. And that's what I have to report. And so with that said, without that report complete, kind of in speaking with the applicant, that we all thought it would be best to continue the hearing until November 9th, when hopefully we have that I can't say analysis, that report complete.
Is there any questions from the board on that topic?
I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing for 400-seater special permit application T-Mobile Northeast LLC to November 9th, 2023.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Deepa Venkatai.
Anna Tesmanitsky, aye.
Marcel Barjona, aye.
Catherine Jersey, aye.
And Tricia Kendall, aye. So it's continued until November 9th. Next on the agenda is 9 to 49 Homer Avenue. We do have a continuance request for this application, which Peter can explain. But I thought it might also be good to talk about the project just in terms of a list of things that we feel are outstanding items, and to have it all on one list. So I kind of started an email that I sent to Peter before I knew it was going to be continued, of things that I was wondering about. So I can start with those, and if anyone has other things, we'll add them to the list, but just to try to keep track of outstanding items.
Are we
but-
allowed to do that if we're continuing a public hearing?
I think since we're not discussing anything, within
Okay,
the
we're
project.
just making a list.
Yeah,
Just
I just
making a
want to
list.
also, can I just add?
Please.
So just from the last meeting, the applicant, it was October 12th. That day we received GCG's letter. Everyone remembered that. And then we had the renderings from the applicant. I know we talked about renderings, and we had all the material samples out on the table. So since then, the engineer, this past Monday, submitted a response letter dated October 20th, revised plans, revised stormwater calculations, and I believe a revised turning analysis for fire trucks.
Do we have that? No, not yet.
Not yet.
Okay.
So in your binders, there is the letter was printed out.
Okay.
All information was submitted, is actually up on the website for everyone to review. I did not go crazy printing out everything because obviously they were continued tonight,
Okay.
but in front of you, there are 3 updated plans on the table for everyone to take a look at and/or take home. So with that said, reaching out and working with the applicant. We'll back it up a little bit. At the last meeting, we asked to have 2 renderings, a colder, is that the term? A colder and a warmer color palette.
Yeah.
Color scheme? Yes. I know.
Yeah, don't mess with her right
So
now.
we haven't received that yet, right? So talking with the applicant, knowing GCG was still under review of this document, they felt it was worthwhile just to put it off until November 9th, where hopefully at that point GCG will have responded to this letter dated October 20th, and from architectural standpoint, the cooler and warmer color palettes would have been submitted for review. So with that, that's where everything kind of sits right now.
So would it be better to go through our list first and then continue?
Yeah, why don't we read your list,
Okay.
right? Isn't that what we're
So,
doing?
yeah, so
And then
this
we'll
is,
continue
this
after?
is a printout I sent to.
Can we put it up on the screen?
Oh, yeah, I think so.
Sure.
Yeah, so what I did in the email is that I cut and pasted things from, it's just a list of maybe 6 items, but I cut and pasted things from previous reports, like the Design Review Committee, in order to explain to Peter what it was that I was trying to get at. So it wasn't originally intended for everybody, but it might be helpful. So, and I can just start. First of all, I said a question on the environmental impact study. I believe we asked about it during one meeting. This was something that came out of the Design Review Committee notes. And Marcelo and I made a note about it to review with GCG. And I believe when I mentioned it, Terry Morris, the attorney, said that they did do one. And so my questions were, did GCG have this report? Were there any other comments from Mike Carter from GCG? Does GCG recommend, and it's kind of semi-related to this, but no blasting, which Mike Carter talked to us about on site? Or is that not in the purview of the consulting engineer, were my questions, right? So the first one really is just about the environmental impact study. Where is it? Who's reviewed it? Things related to that. So that would be on the list. The second item was in regards to trails. There was a, did this get in the binder? There was a,
The email from Joel Arbeitman, yes, is in everyone's binder, but it is behind the agenda and it's behind the memorandum from Anna above the meeting minutes.
okay, so in, I want to say May?
Oh, no. Not the, no, I'm
that
sorry.
was a follow-up because Joel
Oh.
made
Yes.
his comments on last meeting
Yes,
and then
yes,
followed
yes.
up with that email.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, no, so,
These are,
there was, and maybe there was more than one email. I was looking at a particular one where Joel had, I want to say it was from May, Joel, in thinking about the plan, and thinking about 9 to 49, that's the one, and thinking about 9 to 49 in relationship to the potential trail, I think it was after the discussion where we talked to Preston Crow about the trail, he had sent a document that just talks about ways that it might be made safer. This was before the change in traffic flow, which is kind of one of the things on there. So I had made a note. My second note is trails. GCG is recommending in their document a traffic impact analysis, or a revised one if one exists. And I didn't see it on the website. A bike trail may be located on Homer Avenue. Does GCG's assessment take this into consideration? Are there any other safety precautions for cyclists, pedestrians that should be considered? So trails was my number 2 thing, not in that order.
Are you thinking of asking GCG if they considered the lack of traffic study, or if they themselves completed one?
If they, any information we have about a traffic impact analysis, GCG was recommending one. Does one
Okay.
exist? If it exists, has it been updated to the new traffic flow?
Okay.
That kind of
Do we
thing.
want to ask for one if it doesn't exist?
Well, GCG is asking that we do, so I would say if GCG is asking, I'm asking.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. So that's probably item 5.
Well, these are two items
Yeah.
for me
Oh,
so
sorry.
far.
I'm
There's
sorry.
environmental
I was making-
impact study
gotcha.
and there's trails.
Sorry,
right?
I started with sorry,
Yeah, so,
I'm already on 5. Okay.
my third one, it was a question actually for Doug Scott, because again, going back to the Design Review Committee, they had made a point that 3 of the units are only accessed from the upper level outdoor space. And it was just a question to Doug, is that okay? Because if they have to change the design, that's not to code, from his perspective, then the applicant should know that now, right, as a design change they have to make. But that, as Marcelo and I put in our thing, that's to review with the building commissioner. It's not for us to decide. It's a code issue. Fourth question was sewer. Are we allowed to require a grinder as requested by DPW in their analysis? I think Kate had mentioned that one time. It's in the notes from DPW saying, hey, we'd like to have one, can we ask for one? So I don't know who answers that question, if we can put that in as a condition.
Is this a special permit project?
Yes.
Why
Yeah.
would we not be able to?
I just don't know the regulations, and I'm not going to say that I do without asking the question.
So are we asking Peter or in town council to opine? Because
I-
that's not an applicant answer, right?
I don't know. I'm putting it on the
Yeah.
list and letting Peter track it down for me. Right? Number 5, delivery and emergency vehicles. At one point, I believe, on this project, we had a space, I think currently it's for deliveries, but we had a space for emergency vehicles, I think. Then the route changed. That was when it was in and out. Then the route changed. So my question is, now the police and fire department had already okayed, I believe, this plan. But my question is that still needed or not needed from their perspective, right? They might be like, nope, we don't need that anymore because we're just driving through.
But Tricia, I seem to remember, maybe I'm wrong, but there is a striped area at the inception of the driveway that they actually confirmed that it was for that purpose, I believe.
Right,
Yeah.
but I didn't know, and now it's just, I think, labeled kind of for deliveries. So I just wanted to make sure that they're okay with that, that if they need it, they're okay with it, they're okay with the size of it, because it's kind of gone through the ringer a few times. And then, so that was like question 5, and then 6 was Conservation Commission. Where does this process stand? When does it get started? So, which I think Peter said that they're looking to complete our process first and then do conservation. But as you know, we always have a contingency in there that, you know, ours is contingent upon conservation's approval. So,
Yeah, and that's just boilerplate language that are in any of our conditions, that permits will be sought from all other departments. So,
and then the last one I had was the one that Peter had mentioned about design. Looking through the design, all the things we talked about design last time was that we had asked for 2 schemes, rendered, 2 sets of physical samples, one with that's a cool palette that kind of is connected to the town and the cool brick of the sidewalk and that kind of thing. One that, and I think that's kind of what they were showing, more the cool gray, and one that's a warmer palette that may be more connected to the railway station across the street, which is a warmer stone, a warmer brick, and to show us 2 palettes, complete 2 palettes, so that we can look at them. Those are my items. Does anyone have any items to add to the list?
I do, but one, it's along that lines. I recall the last meeting, we had asked for, since there were sort of recommendations, open things from design review, to have the applicant say, doing, yes, get it, not doing, still in consideration. They were supposed to comment back the same way we've done back and forth with GCG. And
Okay.
so I think we should ask for that again.
Even if they disagree, I think we told them if you disagree with something the design review recommended, tell
Yep.
us why you
Cite
disagree.
it.
Exactly. I do remember that.
It may be covered under your Conservation Commission, but maybe not, because there were specific comments from the conservation agent about plantings that is open.
I have those printed out somewhere.
There's some DPW about verifying water and sewer lines.
So some of those, yeah, so some of those, I think it's information that, like, the planting stuff is kind of design review committee, but we can see if it's been already incorporated, because the applicant did get those notes from the various parties, so I just haven't gone through and seeing if the plant names line up. But that's something they could do, right? They could, the applicant could confirm, yes, we got this and we made these changes.
The fire department, you said, I think a last look, because I sort of agree, it might have been a missed with the change. There's also a fire department connection for the sprinkler, and that was sort of on the GCG report, so it's probably covered, but we also like to make sure the fire department's happy, right? So that, I think,
that's why I'm making one.
The conservation, I think this is covered, but they have the Atlas 14 stormwater, so I think that's mostly probably with conservation.
That's already
but-
covered. I know for a fact that they're using Atlas for all the stormwater review.
We did get that SWIFT path analysis update, I think, but
Mhm.
is that, those are,
Anybody else have anything to?
No, I think it's a comprehensive list. Thank you. So how are we gonna deliver this list to?
Yes.
Some of these items are more town council questions, right? Like,
Most
can
of
we
them?
require a
Yeah, I mean, I think most of them actually are applicant questions.
Yep.
I
But-
guess I have another, because I was thinking you covered with the grinder, but I did have, because it's under just that this is adequate infrastructure, a general water sewer, right, conversation or memo from, because we are under a sewer moratorium, and part of that was to study how this all works, so it's like the volume expected and how can we handle that? And
So-
then the general about adequate water supply, pressure, whatever, and that is sort of with the applicant, but we said we're coming to this meeting to discuss it, which we're not, but I think those are open issues as well.
Didn't we discuss water pressure before?
We talked about it a little bit in the email from Greg Eldridge, what I sent out, he does state that the downtown has the highest historical water pressure. And so typically, when you kind of go in, you start designing these buildings, this is from my understanding from a layman's terms, that and I think, in my eyes, that as you design your building, right, you do a flow test, right? And so typically, you open up the hydrant, and there's a flow test done with the DPW, and then those calculations, those numbers are then used to help design the interior plumbing of the building. And so the question is there adequate water pressure at the site? From what I collect from the email that I share with everyone is that, yes, there is enough water pressure at the site.
Okay, I think,
to
I
be-
recall, I don't have that email with, there was an open issue that he didn't, said probably enough pressure
No,
and
I read the
something,
email, it's definitive, there's plenty of pressure. He
but there
confirmed
was
it.
an open issue about.
Well, we
in
can
that
go back
memo?
and check that email to see if
But
there
I
was
think
any
it's
other
in terms of
DPW issues.
on the technical questions like the grinder, right? That's a technical recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see it in GCG's analysis. Could they provide a recommendation from the engineering point of view?
I can ask, I can reach out.
Because it's different when you say, oh, we would like you to put this, that's different.
Yeah.
When there's a technical rationale for
And I think, yes.
the benefits.
Di- Didn't we get that from the water? There was in a memo from the water that we had asked for that, the engineer.
We got it from you, actually.
No,
No,
it's,
No, no,
we
he- that-
received a memo from.
Yeah, no, because Peter followed up with him and based on that discussion, and he confirmed that, that they are very supportive on the idea of having one. Absolutely.
And
But I think Marcelo was saying from a technical rationale, for us to make a condition, we need to have a technical rationale to put that in there.
Yeah, I mean, any request should not be arbitrary, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
yeah,
Okay.
I agree. I thought that was the follow-up.
Yeah,
That-
that's, and maybe GCG can help us with
Yeah,
that.
I can reach out.
Okay.
And I don't want to get too far down this because obviously this is closed and I don't want to start discussing this stuff, so. But I think we can add it to the list and I can try to follow up.
okay. So we'll be following up with all the technical notes that the different departments provided, and that would be one from DPW that had the grinder on there. So anything else? Obviously, things can come up later, but I wanted to be able to give them a really strong list and clear to the applicant of things that we wanted on there.
It seems like we got a complete list. I took some notes. It looks like you did too. Do you need my notes after, or you're good? Like, who's gonna compile all of this stuff?
I was going to take Trish's notes
Okay.
and I was going to go forward and
Yeah, but if you,
Cool. I mean, I can try to turn this into something.
if you can turn that into an email,
Yeah.
Yeah, make sure
I'll
it comes
gladly
in.
take it. Yep.
all right, so then if there's no other comments on 9 to 49.
I'll make a motion to continue the 949 Homer Avenue site plan and special permit application to November 9th, 2023.
I'll second.
And a roll call vote.
Anna Tesmanitsky, aye.
Marcelo Hona, aye.
Catherine Jersey, aye.
And Tricia Kendall, aye. So that's continued to the 9th. Okay, so that puts us at number 5, reports on planning topics. So let Peter update us on any of these items.
Yes, excuse me, I just gotta. Yeah. So report on planning topics. So scenic roads, we're still working on, and I apologize. Tomorrow morning for Economic Impact Tool, I will be attending the Framingham State Economic Summit. And so I have the Zoom link, and I'll be ready to go at 7:30. So that should be an interesting one, since I'll be home having breakfast with my daughters, but, the camera will most likely be shut off. Moving forward, the parking is always on, and I think we're continuing. However, I think that one just gets kept on getting getting piled on, because right now we're dealing with MBTA zoning in the office, and we're dealing with a couple other items. So I hate to say that one just kind of is still lingering. However, I think I do have an idea of the direction that we need to go in.
But isn't that a dimensional requirement? I mean, it's almost changing one paragraph and saying
Correct.
from 20 to 18, right?
Yeah, but 2218, and I think we can continue to, and I think I could dust up that memo and bring that back up to consideration. And I think the other aspect is, and I don't probably think we need to even go there, because the building codes go there today, is that I think EV parking, when you start talking about percentile of EV parking, I think you just let the building code speak for itself. Then the only other concept we could talk about is compact cars. And if you start bringing in a concept car, the compact car, which is typically, I think, 8 by 15, you could start making, a couple more spots in a parking lot a little bit smaller, as you may see as you travel around. And so those are just some things to kind of think about. I know there was a lot of American Planning Association articles about parking, and that I've downloaded, and I'm happy to share with everybody. But I think those are just food for thought.
I have a question. I think if it's under the topic, but possibly not, or the working group, would they be considering parking related to the MBTA zoning as well? Like taking a look at if there's any potential updates that we would want to look at?
For the MBTA zoning?
Yeah.
No, I think the MBTA zoning that I'm working on with, obviously, our chair and Mr. Mignani and myself, is that I think the MBTA zoning is going to be, I think we just need to focus on MBTA zoning and just look at that from one angle. We can't look at it just from one angle, right? But we can look at it. I think when you start adding in parking regulations on top of it, I just don't think it works, and it's going to work that well.
I'm not actually clear what, I mean, we were gonna give an
Well, so
update to
it's-
that in a little bit, but.
It's transit-oriented development, in theory, and people are using the train, in theory. And does that mean we should be looking at the parking requirements? That's kind of just the basis of my question.
Yeah, I think the MBTA zoning is so big picture that it doesn't get into that kind of.
No, but we are going to have to look at our zoning if we're going to comply, and we could be looking at it holistically for the area that we are potentially considering. And I would consider parking part of that, that's all.
It might be helpful, it sounds to me like what you're saying, I'm going to interpret what you're saying, for like what I think is doable, which is, once the MBTA work has progressed significantly and some kind of decision policy-wide is being made as to what area of town is actually going to be impacted by the MBTA regulation, that might be a good time to come back to the parking issue and see if there's something relating to parking that we want to congruently address. It may not be addressable, but it might be something we want to consider, so that if we're going to kind of rezone an area that's not already rezoned, it sounds like we may be rezoning something that's already zoned for it. But if not, maybe we should consider parking. Is that what you're saying? Okay. I think that has some reasonable reason behind it. I don't know if we'll have the time to do it, but we can certainly think about it, right? If we're looking at it already, we can see, hey, what's the parking in this area? Is it adequate? If we're going to make it more dense.
I'll it's on our radar. Now it's on our radar, and I think we can think about it, but I don't want to make any promises.
I don't think you're saying we have to change anything in
Yeah.
the rezoning. I think you're thinking maybe whatever work you guys are doing on the MBTA, you're going to recommend certain interpretations of, hey, these areas might be targets for rezoning. Once there's a decision made by the joint group, maybe we can then consider, hey, what's the parking like in this area that we've picked? Should we maybe think about amending that? But I think that's for later. I feel like we need to get through the MBTA stuff first, meet the statutory obligation, make the state contend that we followed their requirements, and then see if there's an unintended consequence of, oh my God, now we can't park anywhere. Right.
Yeah, I think right now we're just,
We're not there yet.
we're still working with the compliance model from the state level, doing, we completed the GIS work, which was a huge lift. We're looking at the acreage, we're looking at the next step within the compliance model, so I think we're working, it's all happening, but to add another complexity in there, I think I don't want to say it's too much, but I understand where you're coming from, but I think we need to work through some more items on the MBTA before we start talking about parking.
Yeah, I mean, that can actually just be our summary for that item, and it's just not on it. I was just going to note under other that we are continuing to work on it and progress on it in order to present. I think we said November 15th at the select board meeting, but to be able to present those options, so. Okay, so then we're to reports from board members and town planner. Comprehensive plan. Kate and Annie, you sent out a letter today, which I think did I see it in the binder as well?
Yep, it's in the binder right after the agenda.
Okay, so which one of you wants to take that?
I can give it a shot, since we have an associate member and members of the public. I can not exactly read, but kind of go through the letter. So basically read. So the letter is addressed to the planning board to update the planning board. Kate and I did discuss this to make sure we're on the same page. And our conclusion is that there has been a significant change in the process for the comprehensive plan, that about a year ago, I think it was in July, August, summer of 2022, the planning board had reached some final agreement on how the comprehensive plan would work. That was done after significant discussion, negotiation, and it was made pretty clear that town staff, select board, planning board would have shared responsibility for the project. An agreement was ultimately supported by a vote of this board that a project management team would be created with two responsibilities: issuing a request for proposals for the consultant and functioning as a liaison between the consultant, the steering committee, the select board, and the planning board. It was given that the members of the project management team would sit on the steering committee, but it was certainly not ever discussed that they would disappear, that the project management team would not exist anymore. And it was certainly not called a consultant selection team. It was called the project management team, and Kate and myself agreed that that is what we voted on a year ago. So this is where we are now. Since the consultant was chosen, it's come to my attention and to Kate's attention that the project management team meetings that were happening have stopped. There has not been a vote by the project management team to disband the project management team. The steering committee has not voted to disband the project management team. And the two groups, the planning board and the select board, that voted to create this entity have not voted to end it. The only reason it has essentially ended is it has not met because no agenda has been posted despite multiple requests from me, including for a meeting where I was supposed to be chair for the project management team, and the only agenda item was the discussion of whether we still exist. And it was not posted despite my requests to post it. And the effort of town staff was respected so that I offered to post it myself, and I was never given a memo to do it. So essentially, the project management team is no longer meeting because no one is willing to post an agenda. Meanwhile, between the meetings of the steering committee, there has been key work being done to develop data, gather input, create surveys, and obtain key information to deliver back to the steering committee for input and vote. So decisions are being made every month between steering committee meetings by a new planning management team, which appears to involve the consultant, town staff, and at least one select board member. Planning board members, myself and Kate, are fully excluded from this process, and we disagree with this change. The new project management team has been working to essentially gather data that the planning board and the select board agreed the planning board would have a role in gathering. At this point, you might ask, hey, what's the big deal? The steering committee is a group of great people. The co-chairs of the steering committee are doing a great job running the meetings. We have very experienced staff. We have a great consultant. Why should we care? And what I'll tell you is the planning board has jurisdiction over planning. And to exclude the planning board members from project management, what it does is it removes a entity that is ultimately responsible by state law from creating those policy decisions of who do we ask for data and what questions do we ask. Those are the kinds of things that are happening between each steering committee meeting. And ultimately, we all want the same thing. We want a successful comprehensive plan so that down the line, when we have a final draft, everyone in this room, including Kate and I, can proudly say that we were part of the process, and the public can feel that there's transparency and ownership by this committee, by this group. And at this point, Kate and I have concerns that we are no longer following the process that we voted on. So others in this room may disagree with us, but I would ask the rest of this committee to bring this back to the select board and have a conversation about this and actually take a vote so that if we have a new process where the planning board will not be part of a management team, that we all agree on that and we are transparent and open with the public about it and we all own it. So that's the point of the letter. I don't know, Kate, if you want to add anything.
I mean, I think it covers it. I guess if anyone had questions, what I could say is this. I feel strongly, as it goes back to the root of some of the discussions to come to that agreement, that we, for instance, and I think we've heard from people that when it seems a very town hall centric process, people can have concerns about that. And the consultant for the very first meeting of the steering committee sent out a survey to 29 people. And it was like things you like about Ashland, don't like, and some great things you think about the plan and some concerns. And of the people that responded, and I can't say 29 people, I don't know, it showed up as a concern about distrust of town government, right? So the more we can stick to what we said, to have the three groups kind of working on the management, I think that helps with a perception to make sure that it's not one entity leading this. And I also, I mean, me personally, just having that, an agreement that we did have not being followed gets kind of sticky for me personally.
Does anyone else want to jump in with comments?
I have 3 questions.
Yeah.
just, I'm trying to kind of digest the explanation that Anna and Kate gave and what the letter says. So just remind me, what was the objective of the project management team? Was that objective to carry through its stage? And the question goes to, I'm trying to understand, by reading this or by what we just heard, looks like something just evaporated out of the blue with no explanation. Was there no discussion, the way this sounds, in those initial stages of the group? I just don't understand how suddenly some group disappears with nobody knowing. How
It's
did
not that no
happen?
one knows, it's just that the group is refusing to post an agenda. I mean, so to answer your question, let's start with the basics. I found Michael's original memo from June of 2022 that proposed the integrated plan. So he
So-
created,
And I actually have what we voted on, so.
that's great, so we can talk about both documents.
Because this was modified when we left that behind.
And we can discuss both, that's not a problem. So this document informed our ultimate discussion. And so Michael's proposal was that the additional responsibilities for the project management team would be liaisoning between the consultant of the steering committee, select board, planning board. The project management team would also help collect data, other required information necessary for the development of the existing conditions plan and mapping, and help with the drafting process, right? Because a group of 20-some people
Yeah.
drafting is difficult.
So
Project
what
management
was
team.
the ultimate objective of that committee that has now?
Yeah, so the final draft, I believe this is final, these are my notes from Wednesday, the 26th of something. But I think the date on the report was October 2022, I believe. October, November. The project management team, this is after the request for proposals. The project management team will become a part of the steering committee and will be a subcommittee within that larger group. As such, the project management team will work with town department heads and staff to collect data and other required information necessary for the work of the steering committee. As a part of the steering committee, the project management team will also contribute to the responsibilities and tasks of the larger group.
Okay, so is that, I'm trying to catch up because I'm trying to remember all the discussions. So the project management team is a sub body from the steering committee. And the group that is not posting agendas or that's not suddenly not meeting is that group. So is the steering committee who basically oversees this group not aware?
So the steering
of this?
committee does not oversee this group. This group was supposed to become a committee of the steering committee. So the comprehensive plan project management team has a schedule of meetings, and it includes staff, Michael, Peter, Yolanda, Brandy from the select board, Anna, and Kate. So we met and met and met and met, and once we got either to August 17th or September 21st, Kate and I would ask for an agenda to be posted, and it was no longer posted.
Is
I
there-
don't know how else to explain the process to you, other than if a group refuses to post an agenda, the group is no longer meeting.
Okay.
So
Not
there has
sure.
been no vote to disappear. There has been no
No,
vote.
I get that.
No group or entity. Steering committee has never voted to end this group.
Okay.
The select board and the planning board have never voted to end this group. The comprehensive plan project management team has never had an official discussion because we've never had a formal quorum or an agenda been posted to discuss if we still exist. There has been no vote. There have been individual discussions. You know, I've had some discussions with Brandy about her interpretation of whether or not we should exist. I've gotten some clue from Michael as to whether or not we should exist. But there has never been a formal discussion or vote as to whether or not this group still exists.
And what was
I
that?
don't think this is fake. Like, I think the group existed at one point and had a meeting scheduled.
I don't think anybody's saying anything is
Right,
fake.
but at some point, it no longer met.
I think
And
Marcelo
now-
still had a third question that he intended to
Yeah,
ask.
and the last question is, so this letter seems very clear to me. Has a similar positive requests being issued to that group to discuss that and find out the solution?
The steering
before
committee
this?
agenda is set by unknown entities. I don't know who sets the agenda. I believe it's this new project management team that includes.
Before that group was formed, I mean, you guys were meeting, right? Suddenly something goes,
There has not been I think you're saying, has this memo been presented to the steering
or
committee?
something to the effect of, hey, we asked for an agenda to be posted. We request to have a meeting about it to,
Asking the steering committee to post an agenda?
Asking, yeah, I guess if the steering committee is the one that is kind of on top of this, based on the structure that I believe that's the way it is, right? It seems to me that there's got to be a very black and white answer to that question,
So,
if it's been asked.
yeah, so the project management team would be free to post their own agenda as a subcommittee, right? So you're saying that someone submitted to the town clerk an agenda to be posted, and you're saying it either was not posted or it was posted and then taken down. Is that?
It was just not posted.
Okay.
So,
Did you
so to
explain
be,
why?
no. So to be clear, the way that these agendas would be posted is we would send it to town staff to post. Town staff has not posted it. No, I don't know why. What I will say is, the reason the project management team exists in the first place, with the agreed-upon membership of 2 select board members, 2 planning board members, and 2 staff, is because this group voted for that. And the select board and this group met together and agreed on this process. And so the idea that the steering committee should make that decision seems a little bit backwards to me. I think we need to go back to the select board, and this group and the select board need to have a conversation, because
But that was the
we
point of my question,
together-
because I'm reading it exactly the opposite. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm thinking if the steering committee was created, it was voted, I remember, we were part of it. We know how it was put together. But now that is the entity that is running this process. So before getting out of that into the past, or the entities that created it, I just don't understand, and I feel sorry that if both of you have been excluded, I don't see any reason for it. But that seems to me to be the place to.
There has
to
not
get
been
that
any,
discussion, no?
there has not
Well,
been any vote by the steering committee to exclude anyone or to create a new project management team.
But I think, I mean, I personally think that it's clear. I don't think anyone would ever intend a group of 29 to be project managing. Somebody has to do that. And I am quite sure people in this room recall that there were concerns about having it a transparent and shared responsibility, which was select board, 2 town staff, and 2 town planners. I distinctly remember that, and I'm just going to full disclosure, if it didn't have that, I wouldn't have voted for it, because I had the concerns about making this work without one particular of those entities having, and particularly when it is statutory planning board. So,
Yeah.
so I don't have any reason to think that we were thinking 29 people were liaising with the consultant and that it turned to 29 people, not a project management. I distinctly remember, I mean, we could probably get tapes of, like, there's these ongoing duties that aren't going to be managed. There's things in between meetings that aren't going to be managed by 29 people. I am positive that was part of the
I do want to come in here, just because this document, which I believe to be the latest version that we voted on, are very close, and I believe that to be because we changed steering committee members to be residents versus voters, which we just found we could not do. And the minimum of 6 seats, it was 4, to match the 6 voting precincts, so that has been changed. And there's just another highlighted area at the very back, which leads me to believe that this was the select board will vote on the final plan, followed by the planning board. So these are the language that tells me this was, I believe, the very last version, right? So it does say on here, I read the description of the project management team under the responsibilities of the steering committee, right? It says membership, project management team membership responsibilities, and I read those. Steering committee membership responsibilities. The steering committee will drive the process by working closely with the consultant, cultivating civic engagement, liaising with boards and committees, receiving reports, guiding the project management team, and ultimately refining public input and existing data into drafts of the plan. Now, that said, I think we laid out these, and this is, unless someone can provide another document, this is the thing we voted on. But I do think that it is in here that this project management team, which has been decided as town planner, town manager, to planning board, to select board, exists through this process. I think that was clear to everybody, that was supposed to be a part of, so I definitely agree with you on that. This is supposed to exist, and thus I think it's a good discussion to have with the select board, that this is supposed to exist. Here's what we voted on.
Absolutely. And I will add that right now, there is a new project management team.
And
That,
But I don't
can
understand
you
that part.
explain
Yeah,
that a little
Sure.
bit? Where's the evidence? Is there a vote? You know,
Sure.
what?
So I found out that last week, together with a consultant, there is a group of individuals, it appears that it involved at least one select board member, no planning board members were involved, that worked together with a consultant to create a series of questions, essentially a survey, decided who the experts in our community are on specific issues like transportation, and sent that survey out. Now, this is a wonderful effort. It is an effort that's exactly what a project management team should be doing. And Kate and I certainly were not part of those discussions. We certainly did not contribute to who the transportation experts are. And I can tell you that had we been part of that discussion, tonight's discussion with you would have been, hey, great news, take a look at this list of transportation experts. Kate and I have some input. You as jurisdictional planning experts might have input. Let's see if we have changes or edits for the consultant. Let's bring that back to the rest of the project management team and do exactly what we, the two planning board members, are supposed to be doing. Now, am I in some way questioning the capacity of the individuals who are making these decisions? No, I'm sure they're doing their very best. What I'm telling you is that we meant to include planning board representation and how data is gathered. Why is that important? Because how you gather data means you're choosing who to ask and what questions to ask. That is a very powerful thing that the planning board should be part of. Once those things are done, the process is essentially contained to only one more step, which is you bring it back to the steering committee and 29 people vote. And if 10 of them, which becomes the majority, agree, you're done. And the planning board is no longer part of being able to liaison and do what a project management team is supposed to do.
So I think I understand the concerns. I want to say that there are, Michael Herbert and Brandy are on. I am going to get to them, but I'm going to hold off just a little bit, so be patient up there. Actually, Deepa, you've had your light on. Do you want to jump in here?
No, the wording on that paper that we voted is not really saying that project management team is kind of going to be the project management group that they're going to oversee the steering. It's the other way around. So it feels like that itself is, I don't know if it's a language issue, but the whole working system and the communication is not what that paper is saying. Right now, it feels like the project management team, I don't know if you have a back and forth with the steering committee, how the project management team is working with the steering committee. Are you not? Because when you say you're a subcommittee to that larger group, it's like planning board and design review team, right? They come back to us, and that's how that loop is. But that's not how this conversation is sounding. It sounds like project management team is working with the consultant, steering group is working with the consultant, and I'm not sure what that, because that's not how that paper is really talking about. So you have to figure that loop out, and I guess that's where the confusion is starting.
It may be a case where our intentions on the paper and the reality that we're in now with this big group, and we knew it would be a big group, and how working with a consultant don't quite align and may need to be rediscussed. I mean, that's all I want to say on that.
You know, and I was gonna say, is this the only time where that has happened, or is just, it could have been just a miscommunication, or could
So-
be a different object, but it's,
Finish myself, but then Amanda's going to want to jump in, finish what you're.
yeah, no, I was just asking
Oh,
whether,
okay.
because,
I mean, I have to tell you, I'm not prepared to come here to discuss other miscommunications. What I will tell you is I disagree that this is confusing. I think that the intent is not authority over anyone. The way I voted, what I remember, is that there were essentially a team of people working together for the same goal. We have a steering committee with incredible community members who each bring a unique perspective and steer the comprehensive plan process. We have a project management team with select board and planning board members and staff who are actively doing everything they can to effectively work to support this and liaison as necessary. Everybody's working together. I personally looked at all of these as equal force of nature to make this a success, to make the public feel proud at the end that we all work together. That's my interpretation. I did not look at this as some sort of authoritative triangle of power going down to the people. I looked at this as a team effort. And I don't take any of this personally. What I believe in is if you exclude the planning board members from key project management duties, what you're going to end up doing at the very end is that you're going to have a comprehensive plan draft that I will not comfortably be able to tell you that I was involved in policy decisions. And the public will also have questions about why is it that certain things are coming up last minute, no one here in this room, at least I will not be able to answer those questions because I was not involved in those many, many decisions that take place every month. Do I
Okay.
need to be involved in all of those decisions? Absolutely not. That was not our intention when
Okay.
we voted. So let me finish
Yeah, I
my
just want you to wrap up the
Our
thought.
vote was to make sure that select board, planning board, and town staff work together. That was the intent. That's not happening right now.
Okay, Amanda? Did you?
I just want to jump in because I attended a number of the project management team's meetings before the full committee was created, and I'm wondering if it's just an issue of the larger steering committee didn't exist. Now it exists. There's chairs. It's like up and running, and I wonder if it's just a communication issue with the passing of the baton in terms of getting that subcommittee up and formal underneath the full steering committee group, and I guess what I'm wondering is this issue on the radar of I think it's 2 chairs now that are pretty new, and that, hey, we've said who these 6 people need to be. It needs to be a subcommittee. This is all laid out, and it seems like in the absence of any organization around this, we're making decisions that should be the purview of the project management team, sort of with different groups of people. I wonder if it's kind of because the steering committee didn't exist and it's now the umbrella organization at the time. I wonder if it's just had trouble scooting under. So that was my question, Anna and Kate, because I know how the meetings I attended before I was on the planning board, before just sort of as a member of the public. That was a very public process, those meetings of the project management team. And I think, again, it's like very clear who that group is. So it was a wordy question. I apologize.
So,
Was there?
do you want to answer that, Kate?
I mean, I think that supports an independent person of, if anyone did think that we misinterpreted, I guess that's all I could say about that.
I mean, I will say there's a beauty to the project management team and the 6 of us meeting. It was not always easy. We sometimes disagreed, but it was a vigorous public process. That is exactly what we need for a successful comprehensive plan.
Yeah, I mean, I have been keeping an ear to the ground during this entire process since it began, not wanting to get overly involved because I did not volunteer for this position. But I know those project management meetings have often been arduous, maybe combative at worst. So I know they haven't been easy, and given some of the early meetings, it would be right for us to expect that those wouldn't have been easy meetings, right? So, but that said, that's sometimes how you work out the disagreements and the kinks, right? So, and everyone going into it knew it wasn't going to be a nice, smooth, easy road. I do want to comment on, because after getting this information, I went back and looked at, I'm like, oh yeah, I got an invitation on October 6th, right? And so I went back and actually looked at what that was, and I apologize because I should have responded earlier. But I think I have a copy of the questions. I was asked to meet with, I'm reaching out to you today as one of those experts, I'm being called the expert, to participate in an interview on land use in Ashland. And so, so I received these things, which look like standard things from our consultant, I would say. Yeah, I assumed it did come from the consultant, and so I assumed it was literature and questions that were from the consultant that we obviously hired to do this work. And, but in no way have I been a part of a group. I forgot I got the email, right? So I need to respond to that, but I was in no way a part of a group. So if that was a misunderstanding, then I wanted to make that clear. If there's something about this new project management team or a team of experts.
It just sounds like at some point you were chosen by perhaps the new project management team, is how I'm referencing it, that you are one of the land use experts. And you very well are, obviously, and that's great. But what I'm telling you is that this in no way relates to, and like Kate and I were not involved in choosing who would get this. I don't know who else got it. You would have to ask.
So I'm just trying to I'm trying to clarify your concerns are that things like this in selecting 29 people, or however many of us got these letters, or whatever, that who was involved in saying, oh, Tricia would be good for this versus Marcelo, right? I don't really consider myself a land use-
I think.
Thanks.
On this, I will have no comment, just so we're clear. I will be silent on which one of you is a better expert.
But my question is, are these the type of things that you feel, and it's an opinion question, that you feel should have been part of a discussion that included our comprehensive plan members to the steering committee and to the project management team, right? I mean, I'm not sure.
So I think that falls under the data gathering that you read. Like there was a sentence you read that talked about gathering data, right? So yes, it's squarely what you're suggesting, or the document you received is data gathering. It's exactly the sentence you read to answer your question. And why is that important? Because the questions you ask and who you ask the questions is the key element of a comprehensive plan data collection.
Yes, but I don't think, this is just the start. So I don't want to say that, oh my gosh, I have 1/29th of the voice on this comprehensive plan because they asked me, right? That would be ludicrous, right, to say that. And I also think that the responsibilities are, they may need to be rewritten, because it does say that the steering committee works with the consultant who sent me this. It doesn't say the project management team, right? So what I'm saying is that I think I understand where something is very unclear here, and the process for project management team has been arduous and maybe not a very strongly connected social group at this point, but yet it exists in our documents, right? And I also think that the steering committee as a group has a lot of even the liaison dealing with the consultant responsibilities that we gave them. So I think there's a way to, it's almost like, how do we work out this new, we were thinking here was what those roles should be, what the project management role should be. What should it be? What do we need as a board, that role to be? What does the select board need their members to be? And it might be a discussion in that way. So why don't
Absolutely.
either of you two have a comment, and then I'm going to let Brandy and
Michael
comment.
I think the correct approach is to remember the planning board, per state law, has jurisdiction over the comprehensive plan. We're the only entity in this town that have state jurisdiction. It is our responsibility, period. So we have a responsibility to make sure that we understand and are comfortable with the change, and we absolutely need to bring it to the select board and make sure that that entity, who is a partner with us, is also very comfortable with the change. And whatever the change is, we need to agree upon it, and it needs to be transparent. So my preference would be that this is not about my opinion. This is not about Anna's view. This is about the fact that we voted for something, this group voted for a process. Now we have something very, very different, and we need to come up with a consensus for the planning board. And to develop that, we need to talk to the select board and get on the same page and understand, in partnership with the select board, how are we going to be successful in this comprehensive plan?
All right, Kate, do you want to add anything before I?
I mean, I think we know when the planning board's not involved, things could not go well. The last time it was abolished by the planning board at the 11th hour, I don't know the background, but it's just an advocacy for us to make sure we are not absent from this in many ways.
All right.
Can I-
Oh, Amanda, do you want to, sorry, I forget you're there. Do you want to weigh in before I?
Oh, it's annoying that I'm remote. I'm sorry. No, I guess what I would wonder is if and I completely understand your perspective on like wanting to get together with the select board on this. I'm wondering though if like what just has to happen to get the group back on track, because I guess I kind of want to give a benefit of the doubt that like it's just the meetings haven't been happening, and some other work has been happening in the meantime in the absence of the project management team meeting. And so what I'm wondering is if like it just needs to be a very pointed question to the chairs of the steering committee group to basically get the group back on track, get the project management team back on track if they're the umbrella organization. Like, can that happen?
So the role of the chairs so far has not been formally defined by the steering committee. And originally, when it was presented to the steering committee, I think it was the former select board member Mitchell who said, listen, we all know how to run a meeting. Like, that's what chairs do. So I think what you're saying is, can't the chairs kind of get this back on track? And I would say that the roles of the chairs has not been defined as the authority to get us back on track yet.
All right.
Because my concern is that it's just off their radar, that there's supposed to be this subcommittee that's still functioning within the group.
All right, I'm actually going to let Brandy, you want to unmute?
Hey guys, thank you for giving me a few minutes. So, Anna's correct in the statement that the project management group still exists. Nothing has been dissolved. The steering committee has not talked about the project management team at all. We haven't met because there really hasn't been anything to take action on and to do. So the last time when Anna had wanted to post an agenda, there really wasn't anything for us to act on. I think with the consultant coming on board, we are starting to see the requests coming in for data. And I think it's unrealistic to assume or think that the project management team is going to be the conduit for all the data that's coming in. I think that it's going to come to the steering committee. And if the steering committee believes or thinks that it's important for the project management team to work on this, I think it's under the purview of the steering committee to agree upon that for the project management team to take action. I see the steering committee as the umbrella group that is driving this whole project, and we are a big group. We are 29 people, and this project is, as we know, very big and very cumbersome. But I think we have a great consultant that brings a lot of expertise. And I think part of it is we have to trust some of the work that the consultant has done previously. And we've all agreed upon that this consultant has a lot of strength in the community involvement and working with big groups like ours. So I think that we are on the right track. And I would think that the next steering committee meeting, that this data ask that Michael had sent out an email today, just kind of letting the steering committee know that there was this data asked by the consultant for this existing conditions. I think that that's going to be a discussion point on the next agenda. And if the steering committee feels like it needs extra help, I'm sure that the project management team will be able to assist with that. So but you know, there are a lot of people that are working really hard on this project. And I think it's unfortunate that there's this characterization that there's a new project management team. I don't think that there has been any real changes to the process. The select board, the planning board, we both have 2 members as members of this steering committee, and we're a part of every single meeting. So I don't think that there's another group that's making decisions on behalf of the steering committee. I do think that the chairs of the steering committee are driving the agenda for our steering committee meetings. I think that that we are all working towards the same goal, and I feel that to characterize things as being, you know, anything happening in a underhanded kind of way or behind the scenes is disingenuous. So I feel that we are all working hard to try to get this project up off the ground, and I don't think that there's another group that's working to do something different or nefarious. So that's just my take on the situation. But I do appreciate, you know, the work and the perspective that Anna and Kate bring to the group, because I think it's important. I think it is important to have a planning board voice. You know, it's just the same as it is for the other 27 members of the steering committee. So, you know, and I think that we are going to have a very successful project. So, but, you know, the project management team will probably continue to exist unless there is a reason to disband it. But I think that unless we have something tangible to work on that the steering committee agrees to, I think that we are, that there's really no action to take on behalf of the project management team. So thank you.
Could I respond, Tricia?
Yes, but if you could keep it brief so I
Sure.
can get Michael in there too, and then we
So
can.
I will say that Brandy's point is the point that Brandy and I have kind of been discussing very informally in a more casual way. And I have to say, I very much appreciate Brandy's work on the steering committee. She's been very involved in the newsletter. And, you know, I do agree that we're all doing our very best to make this a success. I will tell you that what you just said, Brandy, is exactly the dilemma we're in. I was the chair of a meeting, right, September 21st. I asked to post an agenda. The agenda item is, let's discuss the role of the project management team in light of the vote we took a year ago, right? Let's discuss it. In fact, I said, let's discuss Michael's proposed integrated plan. Let's discuss what we voted on. And you are deciding, Brandy and Anna are having this conversation. Brandy says, well, this is not an item to take an action on. The steering committee needs to make this decision. That is a policy discussion within the project management team where we disagree to the point where the agenda does not get posted. This is why we're here today. So who is right? Ultimately, at this point, we have a document. We have maybe 2 documents that the reality on the ground right now is that no one is willing to post an agenda for the project management team to discuss it. Who are the people that voted for this process? This group and the select board. So we're not going to solve the Anna Brandy debate without an actual meeting of the project management team or the select board and the planning board. And this idea that it's up to the steering committee to decide how we voted on this a year ago, I
This.
disagree with that.
Not that.
I
This.
think that it's the exact same sentence that you read about liaisoning. So whether it's Michael's document or this one that we voted on.
It's under the responsibility of a different group, and
So-
that's important.
What I will say is Kate and Anna are 2 members of this planning board that distinctly remember that 2 planning board members should continue to liaison. That is no longer happening because Brandy and Anna are having a discussion and a disagreement as to whether that's necessary or anything that we should be discussing as a project management team. This goes full circle to the fact that the project management team has had a lot of debate, a lot of difficult conversations, which are key to the vital success of the comprehensive plan. If we don't want to have those conversations, we need to take a vote and disband. That has not happened. So until we do that, we still exist, which means either post the agenda or let's go back to the select board and create a completely new process that Brandy and Anna and everyone else can agree upon. Because right now, we're at a standstill and it's not productive.
I understand. And I'm going to let Michael get in and comment as well.
Good evening. Sorry, I'm in my jams tonight. But no, I just wanted to reiterate and just say a lot of what Brandy said. There is no new project management team. There is an administrative team that, I guess you could call it an administrative team that consists of the co-chairs, myself and Peter, and then Susan Roby sometimes joins us when she can to help keep us all organized. And really, those discussions are based around the agenda, what types of communications need to go out to the whole committee. That's really the focus of it. Now, there's two specific things that have been brought up tonight, or two specific actions. And I think there's another disagreement here in terms of what's policy versus what's administrative. And the two things were the data request that J.M. Goldson, the consultant, had asked of Peter and I. And that data request is not like going around and asking people for their input. It's like, okay, what studies do you have on transportation? What studies do you have on, parking? What studies do you have on 126? Do you have police call data? Things of that nature. The stuff really only we have access to. So we put that together so they can go ahead and do what they need to do, meaning Goldson, and do their report. Again, no policy decision being made there. So another item was this list of people who are going to be interviewed. Now, I think it's been characterized as a questionnaire. I'm not sure if that's the case. If so, we didn't have anything to do with it. But yes, my staff and I were asked to select, I think it was 3 people under each area that would be considered experts. And so we took into account that really all the steering committee members would have input throughout the plan. So we looked at people outside of the steering committee, including employees. But that was because Goldson needed a tight turnaround, and we felt that was the best decision. By the way, if this was all like hidden and everything, this wouldn't. I believe we discussed this a little bit at the last steering committee meeting, and I sent an email out earlier today, talking about this stuff and saying we're actually going to add it as an agenda item.
I think.
So that could be the issue.
Sorry, Michael. I mean, I think unfortunately, and like I said, keeping my ear to the ground over the past however many months it's been, I think, unfortunately, some of the early discussions, the very early discussions before we all went down this road about trust haven't, unfortunately, those roads haven't been built as well as we would have liked them to. And so I think there's there's not the collaboration that I think is necessary in this process, and that should be happening. And collaboration and giving the benefit of the doubt as to what's going on. And so it seems that, I think like I said before, it is right that we voted on this document and what it said. We created the project management team. And it also may be true that it's purview right now, its function is a little bit confused, maybe a lot confused. And maybe we need to figure that out. That said, I mean, I think it's important, I think it's important for the select board to have their liaisons, their members on the comprehensive plan coming back to the select board. And I think it's important we have our members of our planning board coming back to us, to the planning board. I think that's very critical. So how do we make those roles, how do we make that group work for the whole process? Because I do think it's important to have that input. But I also think it's important to this group that you've created, the steering committee, is obviously a much better group than I ever imagined, frankly, with the little snooping I've been doing on those meetings. So I think it may be best, as suggested in your letter, we already meeting with the select board. They'll have to see, if they, a little bit more room on their agenda that night. I think it's the November 15th, I think, November 15th. If there's room on the agenda that the planning board can join the select board, we're already there anyway, but to have a little bit of discussion about this as well. And to see if we can get this straightened out before the new year, right? And before we get even deeper into this process, because this should be the steering committee, the project management team, the chairs, the co-chairs, the consultant, there should be a really bonded group that, like us, has our arguments, but that, we still come together and make decisions. And I think it's seems like it's on the point of falling apart if it hasn't already, and we need to put it back together again as quickly as possible. Right?
Absolutely.
And that means there's going to be give and take on all sides to try to figure out what the new solution is based on where we are now, not based on where we've never done a comprehensive plan before, let's try to figure this out on paper. Now we have to figure it out from where we are now. So, I don't know, open to any kind of not final comments, but semi-final comments on this?
I mean, I obviously helped write and brainstorm and sign, well, we didn't sign the note, so I very much support the process of going back to those entities. And I distinctly remember we all said as well that the process can change, but it needs to be discussed. And I very much, what we have to remember is it's when things are not transparent and that is just literally exposed, that it's hard for the public, right? Whether there's these things happening, if it was like information passed along, I think that has to be, I will always be advocating for a very transparent and public process, right? So that when decisions are made that we didn't know they were being made, how does the public know, right? That's what ultimately this is about. It's a public planning process. And I just want to also say I agree with you, like we spectacularly got 29 people that are engaged, have things to offer, are starting to reach out farther to, their groups, et cetera. So.
I just have two thoughts. I mean, from what I've heard, and I like where Kate was going with that. The first thing is, I personally think it's always good not to assume the worst intentions on someone that either something didn't work or was miscommunicated or was started on the wrong foot, what have you. So it's good to always leave the room to understand why that happened before. And I say that because on one side, I'm trying to see, okay, what is the problem? Because in my view, Kate and Anna have to be involved in what's important. So what I was trying to discern is, okay, there's a new PM group. But I said, no, there's no new PM group. There's just administrative. Okay, seems to be a disagreement on what happened. That happens, fine. From what I've heard from all these great group of people that were able to gather to do this work, my second thought is, seems to me, my conclusion from everything I've heard is that this can be worked out in about 5 minutes of just discussing it. And maybe it's at that meeting where we can do it. I think that with and I know that what the trust part, it has to be out there, but it also is part of not assuming the worst. I think maybe the both sides of the discussion that I'm hearing are probably closer than they are apart. That's kind of would be my hope. So maybe that's the meeting where this could happen. Seems to me that I just don't see any very complicated way to unsolve this. Actually, I see that it's just maybe a little more soft communication. That's my reading of it.
I think When I first heard Anna, it was definitely a very different thought, but after hearing Michael, I think it's really critical that the roles of the project management team and the steering committee is clear to the consultant, because the question for data collection came from the consultant. And because you have three distinct groups, it was obviously not clear to the consultant who the question should have gone to, right? And I think I can see why Anna is feeling left out, because it is an important process. And the fact that in addition to collecting that basic research or information that we hold as a town about traffic or all the other things that the consultant asks, the question about the kind of the team that should have approached, I think should have gone back to the project management team and kind of shared that, hey, in addition to this data that the consultant asked us, this is another bucket that they're looking for. Can we as a team agree that we at Town Hall can take that lead, or do you all want to weigh in? It could have just been an email conversation. Where I feel I'm going with this is I think it's really, really important, because this is going to be a 2 long year process. If that communication path is not clear to the consultant, this is going to just become difficult and difficult along the way, because who is they're approaching? Who is the one they should ask to? I think the roles have to be clarified, not just for the consultant, but just for the internal working group, because sometimes it's easy because I know the information, I'm just going to give it to you, it solves the issue, and I can check that box. So to make that call, we have to remember we are part of a larger team, right? So sometimes it just happens, but I think it's really, really important for the 3 groups, the administrative, the project management, steering group, all to be very clear what their role is in this 3 years process. Otherwise, this is going to be a nightmare moving forward. And it's not going to be efficient. And all the passion that's there across in this team is just going to fall apart in another 6 months, which is not going to help anyone.
I think that's exactly it. I think that the consultant probably has no context for the project management team necessarily, and the steering committee co-chairs. I just feel, to Marcelo's point, I feel like this is the kind of thing that can get hammered out so quickly. Like, after hearing Brandy and Michael's feedback, it seems like everybody agrees that the planning board members need to be, extremely engaged in that project management team. And it just seems like this can get back on track, just with some clear communication and 5 minutes of all getting on the same page is my hope. Because I agree with you, Marcel. I'm inclined to give folks the benefit of the doubt, and it does seem like it's just sort of different entities with different context started at different times that are not aligned.
All right, Anna?
So I'll say something somewhat critical and then something very positive. The critical thing I'll say is, to me, an administrative group is no different from the new project management team. It's just a semantics of words, right? So essentially, planning board is no longer involved, and there's this new team chosen by staff to exist without any vote by anyone. That is the constructive criticism I have to saying that this is not a new project management team. And I certainly know that Brandy has been very involved in some of those decisions because we've discussed them over email as far as how decisions will be made. So to say that there is no new team is not accurate, despite calling it administrative. The other thing I'll say positive is that I think we all deeply care about this process. And I appreciate it, and I hear it, and I especially appreciate Brandy talking today, and I can see that she cares a lot, and I think we can move through this.
Yeah, and I just think I want to reiterate, Marcella's point about, for me, it starts out with collection of data, but it's really about reserving judgment on this whole thing. So when I read this letter, which was probably 3:30 or 4 o'clock, whenever I got my kids back from the orthodontist, I read this letter, and then my first call was to Peter. And full disclosure, my second call was to Brandy. My third call was to Michael, and my fourth call was going to be to Rob Shearer. I couldn't call either of you two, obviously, because that would have been open meeting law. Because I wanted to get as much information as I could, and I think you can talk to all the people I talked to, and you can say that I grilled them pretty good about what the information was. So that I could come to the meeting, and obviously I looked up all these old documents. I went and looked at my email, what was this thing that I received and didn't respond to try to get as much information that I could, to try to read then the letter again in a kind of context about the complicated things that were happening. And so I think I think all the points that have been made are good. I think the feelings about we need to be more involved in this process are valid. I think the things about giving people the benefit of the doubt, the relationship with the consultant, it needs to be clear. All of these things, to me, I think fit under the category of growing pains now that we're in this process, which is what have been a total of 2 meetings now for the comprehensive plan steering committee, right, with the consultant. So I think we should make the consultant aware of these discussions. I think the co-chairs should be made aware of this discussion. And then on the 15th, we should meet with the select board. Let's get all back on the same page with where we started, plus some new members of that team, the co-chairs and the consultant, and then like I said, try to get our ducks in a row for the next steering committee meeting, which I assume is in mid to late November?
19th, I think, of
19th.
November.
Is that our joint meeting?
15th is the joint meeting, so there's not a lot of wiggle room in there. But oh, right, the next day.
Wait,
Okay.
isn't our next meeting the 9th and then the 30th? Do we have another
I'm
one?
talking about steering committee and
Oh.
comprehensive plan
Gotcha.
committee. So anyway, but wait, I guess at least get things on the right track. So I guess we will be in contact with Michael and Rob Shearer to see if we can make that happen.
Yes.
Okay. And then we will go from there. I do appreciate the time that you guys are putting into this committee. You were the ones who kind of brought it to the table. You stepped up when the 3 of us took a step back. And
Sure you don't want to join the party?
pretty sure. and so, but it's going to take all of us to see it through, right?
Absolutely.
And I want to say that I do know, I'm not trying to beat anyone up about the field, but I appreciate, because the planning board hasn't been absent, and you've always said that we are part of this, so I appreciate it, and it does have to continue, so thank you for saying that.
All right, so we will put an informal end to that topic, and we'll pursue it with the select board to see if we can discuss it in a larger group. All right. Next, we are actually almost at the end. Peter, is there any updates? Oh, wait. I don't think there's any other updates on these committees except
No, I
what
just
you
want,
attended this
yeah, I
morning.
just wanted to mention, I attended the Metro West Regional Collaborative Trail Summit, Annual Trail Summit over in Framingham at Lorraine Arena this morning. And so it was all about trails in Metro West. I did pick up some really good maps, and I PDF'd them and I scanned them in, and I have an email teed up. So I'm just going to give everyone the heads up that I'll send that out. 2 of them are just maps. One of them is a little bit more Framingham centric, and then another one is just a brochure on the Upper Charles Trail extension. Happy to talk to anybody in greater detail. And then that's really kind of what I want to tell everybody. It was a great conference. It was a great summit. MAPC, David Lusenheiser, who actually came out here last spring and walked the new Charlie Buck Trail with me, and then walked down West Union Street, then through down Summer Street into the downtown. Was the one kind of running point, and he does run point on all trails within MAPC's 101 cities and towns territory. And so we do have a strong relationship with them, and it was a good conference, and I'm just going to send out the information.
All right. Nothing else on that list, right? We're good?
I'm all set.
Okay. Planning office updates. I know you wanted to give a brief update to Whittemore.
Yeah, so Whittemore, and I'm not to go into depth, but we had a meeting with the developer, and we hopefully opened up some lines of communication. Just because there's a lot of stuff happening, I'm going to end it at that, but that was a positive sign. Other elements, 100 to 103 Chestnut Street continues to kind of chug along. Nothing too new over there. GCG's been out there pretty much every day and or every other day doing their inspections as required for all items. So that's a good item. That's a good thing. Nothing for 501. 399 Union Street to Starbucks. Things are starting to move around out there too. I was out there, actually I walked out there between the end of the day and in the meeting to stretch my legs, and I did see that the wood has arrived on the site, and so hopefully that's gonna go vertical. And so it's really a simple building, so that hopefully will be kind of put up fairly fast. I do also want to note the Board of Health received an email with a application for all the material and/or equipment that's going in. So that process hopes will be moving along as appropriately so. And then.
Is the sidewalk completed at this point?
No. No. For which one?
Starbucks.
Yeah, just the utilities have been kind of stubbed in, and then they'll be kind of continued to be built out. So, yeah, that kind of continues on, and there's actually two contractors. There's a contractor the developer hired, the owner of the site hired, and then Starbucks actually hires their own construction company, and they do actually the Starbucks build out, and so it's kind of a two-pronged approach. So yeah, those are the updates I can give on the meetings. I did add the meetings for the remainder of there's been no applications received.
And was there anything for 12 Pond?
Excuse me, nothing for 12 Pond, no update. No new applications received at this point, and I do just want to make a note. I did list the last 3 meetings of the month, and I just did put a note. So the meeting on November 15th was a meeting that was called and organized by the chair of the select board, Rob Scher, where we're going to update on MBTA communities. And we talked a little bit about MBTA communities a little bit earlier in the meeting, but that process is going well. We got a GIS license. Alvaro has been doing all the mapping work. We've been using the state compliance. We've been using the all the layers and everything that's been kind of put together. So Alvaro and I have a strong knowledge in GIS, and I think we're using it to our advantage.
All right, any questions about any of that? All right, then we're down to the meeting minutes, September 14th. We did have a few things. I can just name them, I can give this to Peter, but under the associate member position, line 70, it says associate members, kind of telling the requirements for associate members. Associate members must attend all meetings. I think it should be should, and will vote on special permit applications when a full member, it says has recused themselves, but it's really is unable to do so, because it could be because of an illness or something like that.
Yep.
And then,
Can we,
do you have anything in the early?
line 135, can we make it including condo associations? Condo associate sounds like the mob.
Oh. Line 35.
Association, yeah. Associations, right?
Yes. Yep.
And then, I don't know if it's worth it, but
It's like The Sopranos.
I had the
condo associates.
I was trying to, might not be worth it. In the conversation we had with Mr. Morgan involving the scenic roads, I mean, it's a pretty good summary. I just wanted to I wanted to somehow acknowledge in there that the scenic roads is still under the jurisdiction of the planning board, and it is not a part of the sustainability committee. So I'm not sure what the
What
line
line are
is.
you on?
It's just in that 137 to 141, and I couldn't figure out how to say it.
How about, is
Succinctly.
it,
I thought about just changing the end of your line. Ms. Tesmaninsky said that the committee attended a recent planning board meeting to discuss their tree bylaw.
how about a proposed tree bylaw? Because it's not
That's-
really, right, a proposed
Yeah,
tree bylaw?
That's fine. And the second half of that could be scenic roads remain under the jurisdiction of planning board, or just something like that.
Can we just put like an editor's note? Because I don't think we said that clearly at the meeting, did we?
We didn't say it that clearly, but
Yeah.
we certainly said it in many ways. So,
Well, I know, but I know, we'd have to watch either the tape or put like editor's note.
yeah, I did watch the tape, but I still couldn't. come
Yeah,
up with-
so.
So
can
that's
we-
fine if we want to put it as an editor's note.
I
just
think
wanted
so.
to-
I agreed.
I just wanted to be clear that we
Yeah.
in no way acknowledge that we gave that responsibility
Right.
to the
So,
sustainability committee.
like,
I can just put those in parentheses. And,
yeah,
Okay.
like planning
Sounds good.
board edit.
Yeah, planning board editors, no
Yeah.
hyphen, then finish this out, scenic roads remain under jurisdiction.
Yeah, I think that,
That's fine.
Via state statute,
Yeah,
That'd be
that's
cool.
fine.
close parentheses.
And my note on the net zero one, I don't think it was in this context, it was in context of the tree bylaw.
Okay, add a tree plan.
It was not in context of the scenic
Hmm.
road conversation.
Yeah, I don't remember
Mm.
this part.
In relation, can I just write in relation to?
When we were discussing with the sustainability committee, that's when I brought that up. So
Oh,
this
okay.
was not in this context,
I think actually you did mention it.
not in this, in the
No.
scenic road context.
Okay.
I did mention it in the sustainability when we talked about tree bylaw. That's when we talked about it, but I don't remember mentioning it.
You just take it out.
Yeah,
It's,
Just take it out?
yeah.
Take it out. Easy. Easy.
If I did, I must have had jet lag, because that's not the context.
Just say editor's notes, delete.
Line 172, where money has been I think where money has been given.
yes,
Yep.
where money has been given, I think it's supposed to be, where money has been given, but there is no conservation restriction. I'm not sure how that, yeah, where money has been given, but there is no conservation restriction.
That works.
And then,
174 line, just typos.
Yeah, there are a lot of typos on that.
Oh, yeah, originally I got it.
but I also added on 173, so no conservation restriction, period. These, and then I put, these are properties that have been purchased and are being used for different purposes, period.
Okay.
So, yeah, that got really,
Okay.
kind of confusing there. Yeah,
I would say something like that.
yeah.
Trisha, whoever is preparing these notes, whoever is preparing these notes must be really scared of you, because just you have salutations and nobody else.
Oh, wait, what?
Like you have like Miss Kendall, Mr. Nachak, and then Lisa Me doesn't have Miss in front of her name, so really Margie and other lines. So salutations are like all over the
Yeah.
place.
Yeah, no,
Be
actually,
consistent.
and I did not see these like in advance of, but typically I put that everybody,
Yeah, just let's be consistent.
Yeah.
Say first name?
well, no, last, Mr.,
Miss or
Miss.
Oh,
Mr.
yeah,
Like the
yeah,
first
yeah.
time they're mentioned, it's just usually
Sure.
first
Oh,
name,
okay.
last name. But
Yeah.
usually we go Ms.
Mr.,
Kendall
Mrs.,
or
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Matchek or, whatever.
Sounds like formal.
Yeah.
And that might have been, I think that was the end for me.
Spell check on my name on the present one. One E's missing.
You said one? Oh,
So
yeah,
it's- Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
I got you.
And is the abbreviation for attorney ATTY? Is that right? Okay. I don't remember, I was Addie. Who's Addie?
There was that Mark too, isn't there a Mark?
I don't know.
Or ESQ?
Oh, yeah, yes.
That's why, yeah, yeah.
Okay. guess usually we just spell it out, so I didn't, okay. I didn't have anything else, though.
Nope, that's it. Any other changes before I make a motion? I'll make a motion to accept the September 14th, 2023 minutes with the edits discussed.
Second.
And a roll call vote?
Deepa Venkatai.
Anna Tesmanitsky, aye.
Oh, you weren't there? Catherine Jersey, aye.
And Tricia Kendall, aye. So I guess that's 4. Yeah, it's like Marcelo, it is your turn. That's right.
If you don't hear that, I don't know what to do.
All right, so meeting minutes are approved. Anything else that anyone wants to add at the very end of our agenda?
I think we're good.
All right, motion to adjourn. I'll make a motion to adjourn at 9:35.
Look at that, it's a record.
Is there a second, though?
I'll second it.
And a roll call vote.
Deepa Venkatai.
Anna Tesmanitsky, aye.
Marcelo Hona, aye.
Catherine Jersey, aye.
Tricia Kendall, aye. Oh,
We
and,
have to,
Amanda Hayes, aye.
all right, thanks, Amanda, for
Thank you,
joining us.
Amanda.
Bye, everyone.